Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Today, as you can tell, I wanted to talk about drag racing in Florida. Florida is home to a bunch of really freaking awesome drag strips. Eighth mile, quarter mile, less prep, more prep, radial, slick, all kinds of good things. There's so many different kind of styles, feels, environments, and there's a lot to talk about with this topic. So I'm very excited to get to talk about it, because I've been to almost every single one of them pretty extensively, so I feel that I am qualified to talk about this. So there are 6 drag strips in Florida. 2 of those are eighth mile only, and the other ones are quarter mile, and they are all very different. Let's start off by talking about my home track, Bradenton Motorsports Park. Now, you guys probably know pretty well about BMP. It's a great track. It's been around for 50 some odd years now, and they are just on a roll. This track has some top fuel stuff. It has pro mods. It has floppy tires. It has small tire racing. It has a ton of test and tunes, which is actually very important. A lot of tracks don't have that. It has a ton of bracket racing, junior drag strip program. It has some of the best known track prep and surface in the state, in the country even. Plus, we race all year round down here at Bradenton, which is kind of unison for all of these tracks. Obviously, we have rainy season, but aside from that, it is a very, very tight, sticky track. It is definitely more on the radial side of things, even though they do host a lot of slick tire events. They have a bunch of really big events coming up this winter. They are really home to events, and that's not something that a lot of tracks really, really kind of hold themselves to. It's hard to find a track that has both big events, but then also small get-togethers and like test and tunes and like smaller, streetcar style events. Not all the tracks can cross over into both worlds, and BMP does a really awesome job at that. Next up on the list is Showtime Speedway. Showtime is an eighth mile track. They do some radial prep-ish, but they're not really crazy, high prep track. They're more of a home, small time track, kind of nestled in the middle of Clearwater. You wouldn't even know where it is unless I brought you there. That's kind of how it is. It's hard to find if you don't know what you're looking for, which makes it kind of cool. Not really great for business, but they have been encroached upon by the development in a lot of ways. They used to be quarter mile back in the day. They had to cut that down because cars were going too fast. People like Don Garlits went off the end, and if you go off the end, even now, you actually end up on Ulmerton Road, which is a pretty main road. So allegedly Don Garlits, kept his foot in the gas, ended up on Ulmerton Road, probably went to the McDonald's drive-thru, right there, and made it back around. But it's really hard to find. You actually have to go under an overpass that they had just built. They were building it, the last couple years over this track, basically over the entrance. And this track has been racing the whole time. They have a small circle track there that they do some drifting. They do some circle track nights, some Crown Vic races. And this track is kind of a historical landmark, it's considered. So it has one of those 99-year leases, which gives it a really long runway, I think, to be protected. Obviously, noise and everything comes into play, but it's in a pretty commercial area with not a whole lot of residential around there, and then there's just roads around. So it's definitely something I hope can stay around, because it's a really cool little, it's just got a different feel to it, It's just like gymnasium style bleachers that kind of get pushed around, and there's some, it's cool. Showtime Speedway, great spot, cool in the center of Clearwater, busy area, and then you have this hidden little racetrack. So really good deal there. I like that track. Next up on the list, we are heading as far south as this list currently goes to Amac Regional Raceway. Amac is not exactly a drag strip as much as it is an airport that put a drag strip in its place. So they basically took what was a not active part of a airport, and they put some, walls up, and they put like a tree there, and they kind of made it a makeshift drag strip, which is really cool too, because that's kind of how drag racing started. You just use whatever road you got, and then the road evolves a little bit over time, and this kind of feels like that when you see it. And it has, they are really trying to start a no prep program out there, or low prep, not spraying, not scraping, but like kind of low prep. And it's got that, like, you're on the street, but you got some safety feel to it. Unfortunately, that does lead to some issues when cars, have accidents or oil downs or something. They're not quite as equipped as some of the bigger tracks to clean it up. But from what I've seen, I haven't actually been to this track personally. From what I've seen, they do a great job at hosting that venue and doing what they can with what they got, which is really the essence of the motorsports community, is doing what we can with what we got. And I love to see that. So Amac, shout out to him. Then we take it all the way up north to North Florida Motorplex. And now this is one of the newest drag strips in Florida. It's quarter mile from my understanding. Again, I haven't been to this track. It's quarter mile. It's freshly opened in the last couple years. It's not anything, they haven't done anything like huge groundbreaking yet. I'm really hoping they do something to put them on the map, because I think that this location-wise is really nice. They seem to have a really well-kept, really good track surface, good facility. It appears to be ran by good people, so I'm kind of excited to see the future of this one. It's kind of out in the middle of nowhere, so there's a lot of really good positives that come to this. And it's farther north, so you get the cold that we don't get down here. I know that sounds crazy, but they do get a whole different weather up there than we get down here. It's kind of on the panhandle of Florida, and they have they're starting on like the same kind of stuff. You start your bracket program, you start your no prep stuff, you start your radial stuff, and from what I've seen, all three have been going really well. Hopefully they come out with some groundbreaking event that really can kind of put them on the map, bring some eyes to them, because I think that track will be a really important staple to the Florida community and the greater Florida drag racing scene. So I'm excited to see the future of that one. Next up, we have Gainesville Raceway, which is obviously in Gainesville, which is a huge college city, but they have the Gator Nationals. They have, that's pretty much what they're known for, is the Gator Nationals, because they don't really open the doors very often, because they do have one of the biggest and best facilities in Florida. Their facility is unreal. Their tower is gigantic. They have boxes with air conditioning on top of the bleachers. They can hold more than any other facility. They have the most parking. They're in the middle of nowhere. They have this great location. And then they just don't open very much. And that's kind of the crutch of when you have a gigantic facility like that, because everything costs more. Insurance, staffing, the whole nine. It's an NHRA facility, and they just don't really open the doors very often. I've always assumed it's because of cost. Maybe it's just because they don't have the right, management team in place, but it's just not, they don't host quite enough events for, the recreational drag racer, amateur guy like myself, or even like a street car guy to really use that facility. And it's a bit of a bummer. I've always kind of been frustrated by that. But again, beautiful facility. The Gator Nationals is potentially the most attended drag race in the country. I know the last year and the year before that, they've had record attendances. Throughout history, they haven't had that many people in. So that's really cool to see. Gator Nationals is obviously an NHRA event at an NHRA facility. They got top fuel, they got funny car, they have pro mod, all of that good stuff, 300 plus mile an hour passes. But that's kind of really all that goes on at Gainesville, unfortunately. And the 352 shootout, which is a bit of a street car event. All right, last but certainly not least, we have Orlando Speed World. Orlando Speed World is a track I've probably been to the second most comparatively to Bradenton. I've been there a ton of times. Sick Week goes through there. Sick Week goes through most of these tracks, but Sick Week goes through there. They have the U.S. World Street Nationals there every year. It's a really good event, really good competition. But they're very much an import track. Some tracks kind of just get reputations. Orlando is definitely more Latino, I would say. You got a lot of Puerto Ricans, Cubans, and that kind of stuff. So you end up with more import cars. So there's a ton of import races and a ton of like big tire, rotary type of cars, rotary this, Honda K-Series that, 2J stuff up there. Orlando really brings that in. It's a really cool facility for that. They do a great job at catering to those import guys and the import style races, which none of these other tracks do quite to that level on this list. And I think that kind of brings a whole different crowd. You know, I race in Florida all the time, and if I go to Bradenton for one, or if I go to Orlando for one of these import races, it's a completely different crowd that lives in Florida that I just don't see at these races normally. So for that reason, I think it's really cool, and that comes with all of its own different situations than we get. You know, they have a really good radial prep program. They have a really good slick prep program. The track surface is really good. The safety, they have a good long shutdown. They have a sand trap at the end, so that kind of safety is always good. But again, Orlando's always been a great track to us, and I've always enjoyed going there, even if I'm by the dumpster at the end. Bathrooms usually could use some work, but Orlando, again, it's out sort of northeast of Orlando a little bit, so it's kind of out towards the sticks, but they are also dealing with some residential encroachment on their land, so kind of a weird deal on that one. We'll see how that goes over the next like 5 years probably. And I figured I'd mention a couple of other drag strips. These two have closed in the last 5 years: Palm Beach International Raceway and Emerald Coast Dragway. Palm Beach was quarter mile, Emerald Coast was eighth mile. These two tracks were really good. PBIR was a staple of Florida. It is probably one of the most well-known tracks to some of the older generation, I would say, in Florida. If you say Moroso Dragway, you know, you usually can peak up the ears of an older person when they hear that kind of stuff. And it was a really good facility. So it's very sad that that one closed. Emerald Coast, I've never been there, but any drag strip closing is always sad. Emerald Coast seemed to be a good setup, and then they were bought out by, I believe it was Copart, bought them out to park cars there. So very sad, unfortunately. And then on a light note too, we have two new drag strips opening. Leadfoot City up in Spring Hill, which is just north of Tampa, and then Callahan Dragway, which is in the Jacksonville area. Leadfoot City seems like a really, really cool facility that's opening. I'm really excited to see that kind of come to light, because that area doesn't really have a drag strip like this. It's going to be eighth mile. There's a lot of no time guys up in that area, so it should be a good, you know, kind of low prep, no prep, eighth mile. But it's more of a facility where they have some burnout stuff. They're really, that track, they're really pushing the media, the marketing, and I think that track is going to be a really good addition to Florida. Callahan Dragway up in Tallahassee. I don't know. I'm a little skeptical of some things. I am excited for it to open. It should be pretty interesting, but I believe they have a muffler rule, so that kind of makes things really tough. I know it's going to be eighth mile as well. I don't know. I haven't seen quite as much like I've seen with, you know, Leadfoot City, but I think this will be, you know, it could be a really good addition to Jacksonville area. But again, saying muffler rule, tough to enforce. It seems like, I don't know, it doesn't seem like quite a facility, maybe. I don't know. I hopefully I'm proven wrong and that track is awesome and great, but we'll see how that goes. But guys, that'll do it. Thank you so much for watching. I've been meaning to make this video for so long. I've wanted to give a full, complete breakdown on the drag strips in Florida, drag racing in Florida, what tracks are around here, and kind of what, you know, you can get and expect from each one. I hope that was sufficient. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, did I say anything wrong, leave it in the comments and I hope to get to it. But for now, thank you so much for watching. Keep it saucy. I'll see you next time.